Good morning. It is a Tuesday, 11 o'clock, my favorite time of the week. It's not 2 o'clock everywhere, though. In some parts of the country, especially Pittsburgh, USA, it is 9 o'clock at night. A very, very warm welcome to everybody joining us, wherever you are on the planet. My special guest today is a mutual friend from, I'd have to say, probably about 10 years ago. We met at a conference. Before I get into the show, I just want to ask you, do you think that your system is unhackable? Have you seen the news lately of how many large organizations get hacked all the time? If you think you're invincible from that sort of stuff, you're kidding. So my next guest, or today's guest, is someone who advises people around being hacked. Please join me in welcoming my very good friend, Leia, to the show. Hi, Leia. How are you?
I am fabulous this evening in the USA, but so glad to be talking to you tomorrow morning on Tuesday morning in Australia.
Well, thank you very much for being part of the show. Is it about 10 years we've known one another?
It's 14 years, Glenn. It was 2006. I mean, it's like monumental in your life, so I'm surprised you didn't remember.
It was one of those moments where I was at a conference. I literally put down my bags, checked in, walked out, and I met you within 100 paces of the venue, and we just stuck to one another like glue for the entire weekend. It was a fabulous weekend. We even went to the awards night together. It was fantastic. It was and we forged a relationship both in from a personal, I guess, how would I say, support area, and just nurturing that relationship and support over the many, many years, haven't we?
Yes. So you're right. Like, it's from the moment that we met that there was that kind of that click, understanding that we were the same kind of people that really wanted to further each other, further our networks, and really support each other. And what I love about our friendship is that it hasn't mattered over 14 years. We rarely do business together, but I call you and I tap you if anyone in my network has a need anywhere in Australia. And every single time you've been able to link them to someone to help them, which is so awesome to be able to have. I feel like I've got power all over the globe.
It's a good feeling. It's a good feeling to have a great network. So the purpose of the show is actually, I put the Better Business Place together to really put industry experts that I knew in contact with my business community. And so when I'm thinking about running a better business, IT definitely has to be in there, doesn't it? It has to be in the mix when you're talking about running a company these days, because the majority of your information or your IP or even your transactions is done online these days, isn't it?
I mean, everything is digital. So, you can't say that I don't have IT. You have a computer, you've got, online banking, you've got something in the cloud. So everything, you've got email, you have IT.
So, well, I'm old enough now that I remember when you used to get email and you used to say, you've got mail. But these days, there's so much of it, right? And you're right. You don't think how much is online these days. So I'm just going to read out Leia's bio because it's pretty impressive. Now, you've got to remember, when I first met her, she was just someone at the similar networking industry or BNI conference we went to. But then when I started reading what she's achieved, and I know a little bit more about her background, but what I've seen her achieve is truly amazing. So let me read this out to you. Leia Shilobod is the CEO of InTech Solutions. She's the author of Cyber Warfare, which is protecting your business from total annihilation, and 3 indisputable rules every manufacturer must know before purchasing any IT product or service. As a cybersecurity advisor, Leia speaks frequently at venues such as Harvard University and industry events for IT, accounting, manufacturing. Also known as the IT Princess of Power, Leia saves mid-market firms from hackers and keeps them compliant by delivering enterprise-class IT security solutions that would otherwise be cost-prohibitive. Pretty great bio. Tell me a little bit about the book. What made you write that?
Oh gosh. So, you've known me for long enough. You know that I'm very committed to helping people and to helping businesses. I love business. I love connecting people. So I was talking a lot about cybersecurity. And there's only so much that you can put in an hour seminar or an hour webinar presentation. And then like nobody walks away with anything, right? So you maybe say something once and then maybe they take a couple pieces out of that and that's all they have. I wanted to be able to have a massive impact on a lot of people. So I decided, well, the best way to do that is to be able to write a book, right? To be able to have a manual that people can take with them. You can underline things, you can give it to your CEO. And I wanted it to be digestible. I wanted anyone from, my somebody who's a lay person who doesn't know much about technology to an IT director or to someone who's a CEO. I want them to be able to read it, for it to make sense, and to be able to apply what's in it. I'm so happy that the feedback has been that's what I've done. So my 70-year-old dad, I sent a copy to him. He's very proud. He read it. He said, "Oh my gosh, like these things that I was wondering, what are these things? No, I get it. I get it. Thank you for writing this." So that was good. Okay, so it's my dad. And then I have IT directors that read it and they're like, this is good. It tells you exactly what you have to do. If you don't have this in place, you're not securing your business. Can you send me a couple copies so I can give it to my management? I'm like, yes, I can. So that's why I wrote it.
Wow, that's a great, I've always thought most people wrote a book for publicity or to give out as a lead magnet, but to actually have a book created as more like, this is the type of strategy you've got to put in place. And if you can have someone from a 70-year-old right through to upper management of companies think that, like this is exactly what we need to know about IT. They don't need to be engineers or technicians at all, but if they know what they need to protect, then they're 9/10 out of ahead of the game, aren't they?
Yes, exactly.
Hey, before we dive a little bit into it, can I just get a little bit personal? And for those people who don't know you like I do, why don't you just tell us who you are as a person?
Sure. So I'm the mom of 4 children. My oldest is 20 and my youngest is 9. So I've got a little bit of spread there. My 16-year-old is special needs. So he, he's got some challenges, but, anyone who's on this call knows what it is to have a special needs child, understands that the special things about that. I'm also on the board of trustees. I'm actually the chair of the board of trustees of our local community college, which I really enjoy doing because I help the youth to be able to go through a 2-year program to be able to go into the workforce and get really high-paying jobs. That's really great. And I have 2 dogs. I had one that I got last year, and on Thursday we got another one. I love to garden, and now apparently I love to build things. When I bought my new house a couple of years ago, I decided that I was going to try all the things I didn't know how to do before. So I've done things like refinished my wooden floors. I'm trying my hand on electricity, plumbing, and carpentry. So all these things, new skills.
It's like solving problems, isn't it?
Right. Yeah. Right.
Okay. So let's move a little bit and tell me, what are the biggest challenges you've faced in business?
Wow. It's a really great question. So if you own or run a business, you know that challenges like that just gets served up to you just about every single day, right? You show up and you're like, what's the next flaming turd that's going to fly on my desk today? It's kind of like that when you're in business.
It's not on my list, but it turns up.
Yes. Yeah. But I would say that really for me, that the turning point for me as a business owner, it was back in 2014. I was growing my business, and I would say that I was not being a very good leader. And there was quite a bit of drama that was happening in my company. And, to kind of not bore you with the details, it all culminated in me losing 62% of my top line revenue. So 62% of my business went away in a single quarter. I had this the opportunity to say, to blame other people, I really could have, because there were some like not good people involved. But I decided instead that I'm going to take this opportunity to say this is my fault, because it is my business and this is my life. Anything that happens in it is my fault, period. I'm not the victim. I'm going to take this as a lesson. And it really changed me as a leader and as a person, as a business owner. And I turned that around to double in growth every year after that, and to build my business to what it is today.
So I think if you're watching there, it's almost naive to think that something like that won't happen to you. But and when it did, it was a combination of lots of different things. It must have seemed like the whole world was against you, because there was some things in your personal life as well going on at the same time, which we don't necessarily need to talk about here. But when you lose 62% of your top line revenue, you do get to really confronted with that in front of you and sort of going, wow, okay, what am I going to do about it? I can either crumble and let it get me, or I can learn whatever I needed to learn, man up, or in this case, woman up, and overcome it. And sort of going, what are the skills that I need to learn? Because I don't think you've ever lost that I've got to do what I got to do mentality. That's always been who I've known you as. But you do have to rise above it all, and you kind of like have to have this hope feeling, all right? If I just keep moving forward and I just keep learning, or I just keep applying something, it'll get better. And it did, year after year after year.
Oh yeah, I mean, if you want to talk about it from like a business owner's perspective, that first of all, that year, that 2015, it was so hard. My house went into foreclosure 3 times because I couldn't pay my mortgage. I would go to the store and look for like the cheapest piece of meat that they sold. I didn't even know what it was called, but I'm like, I have to take this home and make it taste good for my family to feed them. I mean, like I was in pretty dire straits on that side, but my mind said, we are going to be successful. I'm going to commit to a specific course of action, and I will triumph. So I created like a marketing plan and a sales plan that I said, I am going to keep doing. I don't care if I don't see results immediately. I'm going to keep doing this. I'm going to keep, it's that consistency, right? I'm looking at like the plans that I have, for my business, what I'm offering, and how can I up my game? How can I make this better? How can we serve our clients better? What can we do better? And that whole year was kind of the kickoff of that, and it never stopped, right? Continuously, all of the time, we're trying to figure out how to continuously make the business better, our processes better, whatever we can deliver to our clients better. They tell me something that we screw up on, I say, thank you, because now you've told me how I can try to figure out how to make this better or this not to happen again.
Have you ever given it a thought thinking that those things happened to help make you a better leader?
Oh my gosh, yes. Every time somebody says, I'm sorry this happened to you, I said, don't say you're sorry. I'm happy. I would not have chosen it, right? Like if you have a bunch of choices, like get rich easy or go through all this crap, like who's going to be like, oh, I want to go through the crap? That doesn't happen, right? That's why life gives it to you. Life gives you the gift of this tragedy. Life gives you the gift of this stress. And if you open your arms and you accept it, what can come from that, what beauty can come from that, what amazing things can come from that is just, you cannot imagine it. You cannot imagine it. But if you fight it, if you become the victim, you will never, ever be able to experience the gift of the struggle.
Correct. I mean, it is that journey of just embracing whatever it is dealt to you. I think about that sometimes at the gym, when they say, you've only got 30 seconds to go or a minute to go, or this last run of exercises, you can say, I can just go through the motions, or I can play like it's the last 5 minutes and give it everything. Of course, they say that again in the next 5 minutes and the next 5 minutes. But if I play like that in the workout, I know that I'm stronger as a result of it. The exercises don't get easier. It's just that I get stronger. So this sounds like the experience that you went through, and now you're a stronger and a better leader. You run a leaner, tighter ship You've got the right type of people in your organization, which, come to think of it, who are the people that you really serve? Who are the types of clients that you feel is your market?
Oh, so first of all, to say I love the clients that we work with, and for me, that's really important. I decided a long time ago that we only want to work with clients that are fun to work with, because we're a fun company and we really take what we do seriously. So they have to take what we do seriously too, and we need to be aligned. And if we're not, that's okay. We're just not the right fit, and it does not make me upset. I don't want to. I learned a long time ago that there's good money and there's bad money, right? So if someone shows up and they've got like a big pot of money to give you, but they're going to be painful, it's not worth it. So you say no to that kind of money. So the clients that we work really well with, we work with a lot of manufacturers in the USA. We have clients, we have a lot of organizations in what we call the defense industrial base. I'm sure there's something similar in Australia. They have specific cybersecurity requirements. So we get really rigorous in being able to serve them very well and help them to come up to that cybersecurity requirement for compliance. We also work with a lot of attorneys, law firms, and CPA firms. And we also work with quite a few engineering firms too, supporting their IT and their cybersecurity.
Wow, good money, bad money. I'd never heard of it like that. But I do remember when I first started out my first business, I thought anybody with a pulse and a checkbook was a good customer. And if I'm completely honest, some of those customers, I look back now and think I didn't really care whether or not they had a pulse, just as long as they had the checkbook. And that's because you're in debt, and I get it. But when you start to deal with some of that bad money, you start to realize it's not worth the headaches, and that you really only can afford to and only want to and have the option to design the type of money that you want, which is the good money. And that it comes down to picking the clients that you want, picking the attributes that they might have that would identify them to be a good client. So saying, yep, we want to work with you. Let's do business together.
Yeah. We see ourselves really, we are an extension of our clients' businesses, because we talk about strategy, we talk about business processes and how the technology maps to those business processes. So when I sit down, I'm not having a tech talk with my clients, we're having a business conversation about how the technology gets to support their business growth and where they're going, which is really exciting, right? I'm not the computer fix-it guy. We have we want to be the company that when you have a disaster, you want to take us into the bunker with you. You want us to be part of that strategic team. That's fun.
Yeah. A few weeks ago, we had a gentleman on the show who was really advising with Google and their whole global organization about virtual offices. Right now, they have offices all around the world, not Google, our guest. And he was working with Google to sort of saying, we're going to move into the virtual space soon. So I can't imagine what's going to change in IT over the next 5 years. Seems like it's moving at a rapid sort of pace. So tell me, Leia, what are you doing now to currently grow your business? What are the activities that you do?
We do a lot of things. One of the biggest things that we do is that we continue to grow the relationship with our existing clients, prospects, and friends. So I have an email that I send out to everybody about once every 10 days. And it's not salesy. It totally is. I'm grabbing all of the best minds information and sending it out to them, something that is going to be relevant and important to my clients, my friends, and my prospects. And it's a like message from me. I really recommend to everybody, especially now when we're talking about this age of COVID that we're in, forming relationships and really being like that rock that people turn to you to be able to, this person, they've got good information to send my way. That pays huge dividends, and it has for us already. People are actually forwarding that email out to their contacts, and then we're getting some referrals that way, which is excellent.
Okay.
We also have started to do strategic business planning meetings with our clients, where we're talking about where they are right now, and where they're going to need to go with all the changes. And that's highly valuable for them when we're getting not only additional revenue out of our existing clients and new projects and more work, but they are interested in referring us out. I also do, believe it or not, I do direct mail. So we do some interesting direct mail campaigns with catchy sales letters and maybe some lumpy mail in there. We make sure we do email follow-up, telemarketing follow-up, and we also do a LinkedIn connection. Anyone to me that raises their hand and says I'm not interested says that they can still be engaged. So I ask them if they want to be put on that email for my clients, friends, and prospects, and they say yes. So we continue to market to them that way too. Occasionally we'll do some events, which we haven't done recently. Surprise! That's been put on. Rolled a little back further, and then I do a lot of speaking too. So like webinars, seminars, and apparently now Facebook Live events.
Apparently so. But I remember when you were actually speaking at Harvard. There was a proud moment over in this end of the country, even though you were over there speaking. I was going, oh, wow, I know this person. So congratulations for that. One of the things I found really interesting was that you focused on your current clients and working out how you can serve them better. I mean, I've always heard the expression, a client is a client, or a buyer is a buyer is a buyer, which just means that you're going to get your top end level clients from where they started at one particular level. And then as they keep moving up, all right, you have to move them up. No one just lands a whale. All right, they come to you with a small particular job. So I really like that and encourage everybody watching the show to take a greater interest in your clients. I'm not saying you're turning around and fleecing them for more money, but if you ask them better questions and you dive into their business more, you'll find that they're actually wanting more services from you. But you've got to be involved in the dialogue and sort of saying, well, what's going on? And rather than here's what we've got, buy this, it's more tell me what's going on in your business and we'll see what we can do. And I was watching a show the other day. It was Ford versus Ferrari. And there's a particular area in the movie where Henry Ford leans out the window and says to Shelby, see that factory over there? In World War II, we changed from making cars to making bombers. And 3 out of 5 bombers that would leave this country were made from that particular factory, meaning that they didn't just see, hey, we're making this and pushing it out. We adapted. And, a client might have been, the government, that all of a sudden became a bigger client based on what their needs were. And that's what you're doing. So, hey, congratulations on that. I've had a lot of people on the show. You're the first one that said, I tap into the people that already buy from us.
So I want to almost go a little, I don't want to take over the show on this one, but for goodness sake, I mean, there are so many people that think exactly what you said. I'm fleecing my clients if I keep going back to them and trying to sell them more stuff. Let me give you guys a really good example. And this is why I had to create a process around this, because I kicked myself in the pants. So I have several levels of service for clients, right? One's called basic care. Now, I know you're going to be really surprised that it's a basic level of service. I know it's like not in the name or anything. And then we have worry-free IT. That's like, you got everything with worry-free IT because it's worry-free, right? So we had some people that would come on at basic care because they're like, oh, worry-free IT sounds really expensive. And, I don't want that right now. And then after a couple of years, people are sitting with me and they're saying, I'm just really not happy with the level of service that we're getting. And I'm like, well, tell me what's wrong. And they're telling me what's wrong. And I'm like, oh, well, like you need worry-free IT because that's what that does. And they're like, oh, there's another level of service that I could get where I could be better. And like, I wanted to smack myself. I'm like, I did try to sell you this a couple years ago, but now you forgot. But they forget. Your clients forget. They don't know what you do. They forget all of the things that you do, and you do them a disservice by leaving them out there to go search for it themselves, or maybe even go and pick a wrong provider when you do it because you do a great job. It's not do you know what I'm saying?
That's a good insight, because I mean, when you give them I've heard what you're saying, and they've got option A and option B, and they choose option B, maybe price, maybe they think it fits for them, or maybe they just don't know you well enough.
Yes.
Right? And they choose that, and then, months go past, they forget about option A, right? And they're just running their business and getting product B, and it doesn't really serve them. It never really did, but they weren't open and they weren't telling you about the whole process, what was going on for their business. So it's kind of like you checking in going, hey, if you weren't doing that check-in, you wouldn't get the opportunity to present option A again. So saying, oh, well, we could either do better with a B. Maybe there's some things there that you didn't know, but it sounds like you should have chosen A. Let me tell you about that. And then you get to immediately fix that revenue for you, and the level of service and support that they get, so they don't go out to somebody else. But you're never going to get there unless you ask questions. Yeah. So good for you. All right. Well, let's dive into the show. You had this magnanimous, promise: the 7 things you must do to secure your business or leave it wide open to hackers. How bad is hacking right now? Okay, so let me bring it up, and you can guide us. You can guide through. Okay, so we're going to add that to the stream. There we go.
So, all right. So there are so many things that you need to do for your business. There really are. And if you honestly, if you want to have a really simplistic view of those things, you can grab my book on Amazon. It's called Cyber Warfare. But I tried to condense everything down to 7 really easy areas for you to be able to take actionable items back to your business and make sure you secure it and lock it down. If you have internal IT, please give this to them, or make sure that they are doing everything in here.
Now, wait, just 1 second before we go on. If you've got an IT question in relation to these 7 things, what I'd love you to do is just, as we're going through the 7 items, pop in your question, and we'll see if we've got some time at the end of the show, and Leia might be able to answer some of those for you. So whether or not you're watching the replay or you're watching live, right, Leia will be in this particular group, and she'll be able to come back and answer for you. Sorry about that.
No, thank you. And it would be my pleasure to answer anyone's questions. Also, if you have an existing IT provider, please also provide this to them and make sure that they are doing every single thing on this list for you. If they say that none of these things are important, I would highly recommend you reconsider your relationship, because they all are that important. So the first one, and you're all going to laugh at me, it's strong and unique passwords. So I'm going to say this, and I mean it, and I'm not going to budge on this. Okay? Passwords are hugely important. Passwords are the #1 way that accounts are getting hacked, because y'all have really bad passwords. And you use them everywhere, which means they're not unique, and they're also not long enough. And that makes them very easy to steal and to hack in so many different ways. And then if they can get into one account, they can get to a whole bunch of other accounts. So this is the strategy you have to use. You have to have every single one of your passwords be unique. The one that you use to log into your computer at work needs to be different than the one that you log into your bank account online, needs to be different than the one you log into your vendor account, different than the one that you log into your email. They all need to be different passwords. They also all need to be long. They need to be at least 12 characters long, and no dictionary words. That means I love my pet 1, 2, 3 is against the rules, and you have to delete those passwords and change them right now. Now I'm kind of like, now I'm pulling out that, I'm like that really mean girl from the USA that's going to tell you what to do. That's what I'm going to be so hardline on this. Anything that has a dictionary word in it is really, really easy to crack. So you need to get to not do that. And so now, and they have to be at least 12 characters long. 25 characters would be ideal. So now I've just told you, from my safe little place over here in the USA, where you can't come and get me and tell me how wrong I am, that you have to have 500 different passwords, one for each site. They all have to be 25 characters long. And now they can't have dictionary words. Well, how the heck am I going to remember all of these things? Well, that's why you need a password manager. So there's tons of companies that provide password managers like LastPass and 1Password, and they actually will autofill for you when you go to websites. They have apps for your phone so you can still get your passwords on the go. And they contain random password generators.
Mm-hmm.
So you can just click a button and it can give you some like gobbledygook password that you can copy and you can paste in there. And you say, but Leia, that's great, but I still have to remember the password that I log into my computer with. So let me give you a quick tip on how to create a password that makes no sense to anyone else, but makes sense to you. I want you to think about a line in a song, or maybe like a line from a movie that you remember. And all you need to do is take the first letter of each word in that phrase. And on some of them, you want to capitalize it, and maybe some of those you could actually turn into a number or a special character. And then suddenly you have a password that makes no sense to anyone else except for you. So, Glenn.
That's a great tip. That is a good tip.
Yeah, go ahead and give me a line from a song.
Now I'll have to think of another one because it's I'm a little bit embarrassed about that song. It makes me sound really mushy. Well, I honestly can't think of one now. I know what you're saying. I'm terrible at this, at songs. I'm the one who actually typed in, the song actually was Alex the Seal, and it's not. You know, I'm not sure if you remember that gag, it's meant to be our lips are sealed, right? But someone came on a radio show once and sort of said, no, I always thought the song was Alex the Seal. That's me. So, as you said, it doesn't have to make sense to anybody else, but mine would be Alex the Seal, right? So it'd be A-T-S.
Right.
So that's what you're saying, isn't it?
Yeah, that's close to it, right? And then so maybe instead of an S, you could use a dollar sign instead. So it's still an S in your head, but then it's not a word. Like what a lot of people do is they'll say, oh, well, I can just use password and make it a capital P, an @ sign, dollar sign, word. Well, that's in the hacker algorithm. They can crack that in like 2 seconds, not even, I think less than a second actually. So you can't change an S and in a dictionary word to a special character and it not get cracked. It will get cracked because that's in the algorithms, right? So like, it's not, a hacker isn't someone sitting at a keyboard all day long, just like, I'm going to try to break Glenn's password. Oh, that didn't work. Oh, that didn't work. Let me try again.
But you know what? In my mind, that's what I think a hacker is. I never even thought until you got on the show and said, no, Glenn, they just run an algorithm.
Yeah. I mean, they've got sophisticated software that is it's running algorithms like that. Sometimes they're brute force attempts, and sometimes they just know that, I'm sure there's somebody on the call right now that has summer 2020 as one of their passwords with a capital S because that makes it secure. So it's not.
Yeah, look, I mean, I'll change mine straight after here, but the amount of times I've actually done GGK, Glenn Jeffrey Kirkwood, and then my birth date, and then might be GGK again at the end, but they're in lower caps, so going, there you go. No one's going to remember that.
Everybody how to break into your bank account right now, Glenn?
Correct, right. That's right. That's exactly what I'm doing. Yeah. But I use LastPass, so I will immediately get on and use that. And by the way, my name for password LastPass is not GGK. All right. But it is one time that I sort of go, I hate logging onto this. Right. So it is something that I can remember. But it's complicated, like the suggestion you said, upper and lowercase from a particular phrase. Very helpful.
That's good, right? So especially like in my bank account, the phrase that I use, I love to type it in because I think about this phrase as I'm typing it in, and it's like still like the first letter in the phrase. And
Mhm.
like, if you looked at it, it would make no sense to you at all. But for me, I smile because it's like, it's a good phrase for me.
Mm. Yeah, that's a great tip. And when you sort of say strong, unique passwords, I'd heard everybody say that before, but I'd never really understood the why. And now that you've given me that, I will definitely change them.
Thank you. I saved one person today.
Correct, you have. Okay, let me scroll down to point 2.
Right. So the second thing that I put on this list is multi-factor authentication.
Mhm.
And MFA, you'll hear both of those things, and it sounds like it's really, it's a big word. What does that mean? So multi-factor authentication means you have at least 2 factors to authenticate. That could be something that that you know, like a password, or something that you have, like sometimes you have a fob, and if you press the button, it comes up with a number.
Mhm.
Sometimes you have a code that gets texted to your phone, or maybe an app that gives you a code, or it could be something that, like a fingerprint, something that you are, like a fingerprint. And anywhere that you have the ability to implement multi-factor authentication or turn it on, you should do that, because it's much stronger than just having a password. So if they hack your password, even your super strong password that you just created, Glenn, that they're never gonna, somehow they hack that. If you have multi-factor turned on that account, then even if they have that password, they don't have the second factor. They don't have that ability to receive the text message, or they don't have the fob that has that, that code on it. So they still can't get into the account. And so at this point in time, it really increases your security level so much more. There's a lot of banks that require it. And there are some online services that it's optional. So you can turn it on or not turn it on for sure. And if you have a business and you have any kind of vital information, then implement it at your company. So even when you log onto your computers, that you have to have the multi-factor authentication. We have it here at our company, and I know that sounds like it's a pain in the butt. That when we log on, we have to.
Doesn't sound like a pain in the butt. It is a pain in the butt, but the consequences are that you would no longer have that information, and that's worse. The only other time you get that experience is when you get locked out of your computer, or you lose it, or you've lost your phone. It's still that sensation. I can no longer getting in connection with whatever the online sort of world, right? And even if you think about not having your phone for half an hour, what would you do? Imagine if you were locked out completely out of all your information, or better yet, it was deleted, or held up for ransom, and you weren't able to get it until you paid money. To add insult, you can't even get it. You've got to pay money to get it.
Oh yeah, and I mean, in companies like ours, you have to remember. I mean, this is a good tip for every single person on this call, because you either have internal IT or you have a provider who's helping you. So remember that company or individual has the keys to your kingdom, right? They can log in as the administrator, or if they're a company like mine, they have one account that they can log into, and they can access maybe thousands of different computers. So if I was a hacker, I'd want to hack that company, because if I hack that one company, then I can gain access to thousands of computers. Why should I just do individual computers when I can hack one and get access to thousands? So that's one of the reasons why we have multi-factor authentication. Ask your IT provider if they have multi-factor authentication, and ask them why they don't, if they don't have it. And if they refuse to get it to protect you, then maybe you should choose a different one.
Well, that's another great tip, because I never thought that the people that have access to my computer have access to everything, not just to get into just to get in the computer. Have access to everything. All right. Okay, that's a great tip too. All right, let's scroll down. We're only up to number 3. This is a 3 out of 7. I've already got a list of notes. I'm listening to the recording after this one. Yep. What's layered security?
All right, so layered security refers to the fact that you have to have different kinds of layers of security on your network. You know, way back in the 90s, if you just had antivirus, you were like, yeah, I'm pretty good. And as long as you could do the Macarena, then everybody accepted you as like, you know, pretty cool. But like, you know, we can't just do those two things anymore, Macarena and antivirus. We need a lot more. So you definitely need some kind of protection on your endpoint, and we're moving right now into different, where it's not just a regular signature-based antivirus, but most of the newer antiviruses are kind of AI-based, you know, artificial intelligence, where they're actually looking at how are these processes acting, and is it acting in a way that looks malicious? So they're a lot more sophisticated. So that's very important. And then you also need some kind of web filtering technology. So it's another layer where you're protecting where your people are going. Sometimes they are going somewhere because they're not supposed to and they don't care. And sometimes they go places by accident because they click on a link that they don't mean to. So web filtering is really important. Understanding that you have good perimeter security, so a good firewall that's a business class firewall, that it's configured securely, and that you have the right protection at the perimeter. Also having spam filtering, like really good spam filtering. It's very, very, very important because, I mean, you were even mentioning how you get this massive amount of spam. I work on a whitelist, so the only thing that ends up in my inbox are messages that I said, this is legit, and I do want to see it there. You cannot imagine how much time I save in my day because I don't have massive amounts of crap that I have to sift through and delete. Also, I have a very high confidence about what's in my box. I know that this is the mail that I want, and it's legitimate. So a lot of times, like, actually, I think it's, 60%, I believe, is the amount of compromises that end up coming from business email, right? So having someone infected, if they think about, like, you know, what is the point of entry into a network? 60% of the time it's from business email. Somebody received an email with either a request or a link or something, and it was that. So you have to, you know, be very, very cautious about spam, and that's
so.
Spam.
If you know that that's to be true, 60% is going to come through email. If you're in sales, you'd have to say, well, that's the strategy that's working. Let's keep doing that more and more. All right. Which means that if you're not putting things on a whitelist, you're ignoring the fact that the odds. I mean, hackers would go with a chance of 10%, let alone 60%. All right. So that means that more and more of that sort of stuff is going to be coming.
Yeah.
So if you're not going through and taking the time to sort of saying, that's the email I want to get, and you can just Google that sort of stuff, can't you? How do you white label an email?
Yeah, so you know, there's a ton of different spam filters out there, and if you're on Microsoft 365, they have some tools built in. But I mean, there's so many different tools. We use a couple here. We use one that's called BIZ, and we also use one that's called Reflection by a company called Sophos. I use Reflection on a whitelist. I put my email in my book. And I said, I dare you to email me. Like, that's how brazen I am.
Okay,
like, go ahead and email me. Email me all day. I won't see
because
it.
It's not coming through. Yeah. That's one of the things I noticed when I was working for another organization, and I did a tour of the States looking for angel investors for a particular product we had here. It was all about facial recognition software. We're building a large database. Anyway, the point being is you just couldn't walk up to a company in the States and just sort of knock on their door and then go and sell to them. You couldn't. You'd have to have going through the reception to book an appointment, right? You couldn't just email someone straight from a directory either because of things like that. You wouldn't get through. So it's actually I found it quite hard to actually deal with or do business in America. Anyway, that's off of the show. Yep. Moving down, train your people. Now, This one is now starting to make sense now, because if you're not training the people in your organization, even if just about those top 3 tips, they don't get a concept of why they're doing this, do they?
Yeah. Right. So there's 2 things there. The first is to make it relevant.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not going to understand why cybersecurity is important unless it's relevant to them. We're human adult learners, and adult learners need things to be relevant. So they don't want to be talked down to, and it has to make sense for them in their world. So you want to make sure that you say things like, how often businesses are getting compromised and what that means, what could happen if they gain access to our servers, to our bank accounts, to our information. And then the second thing is to keep it top of mind. So I actually studied this. So we do regular trainings and regular cybersecurity seminars and webinars with clients that they pay us to do these webinars. And so I actually tracked it. From the time that we do a webinar where we're scaring the living crap out of people about what can happen if they don't follow all these cybersecurity rules, to the time where they start to become lax and click on things that we already talked about them not doing, it's about 6 weeks. 6 weeks. So you can't just give people, a webinar once a year and expect them to keep your business secure. Your people are the ones that are working on the technology. They're the ones that have to have that presence of mind to keep things secure. So, once a year webinars is not enough. We're talking about like weekly IT security tips that are relevant, that make sense. We're talking about, quarterly webinars. We're talking about having policy in place. We're talking about Leia, just to make sure that people are trained on the way to use the computers that is acceptable.
That's a great tip too. I already saw that one as a cheat and sort of went, you know what, I can totally get why you have to train the people. I just didn't think that it was that adult learners, or never factored into adult learners being every 6 weeks, and then already starting to sort of going, you know what does it matter? But that's what happens with people, isn't it?
Yeah.
They just sort of, you know what, it's kind of like I noticed that with COVID. After 2 months, we're like, we're sick of lockdown, I saw somebody walking without a mask, so I may as well walk around without a mask. So that's a great thing about doing online meetings, no mask. All right, written policies and procedures.
Yes. All right. This is the one that is so dry. Nobody wants to talk about it. Even IT people don't want to talk about it because they think it is so boring, but it's so important. Because your written policies and your procedures, they outline for you what you should be doing, and they give you that guideline of how to do things. So in here, I listed like the absolute musts. You must have a written information security plan. You must have that. So this is our plan, our program for how we keep our business secure. You can have lots of information in there, including things like what you're going to do for passwords, what your visitor policy is. There's so many things you can put in there. The second is an incident response plan. So it's not if I get hacked anymore, it's when I'm going to get hacked. And you don't want an incident to happen and then you decide, oh my gosh, like now somebody's email got compromised, or oh my gosh, now we are infected with ransomware. What do we do? Like that's the wrong time to figure out what you do. You figure out what you do beforehand in an incident response plan that has everything together. So when it happens, you just pull the plan up and you're like, okay, we don't have to get emotional about this. We just execute the plan. The other one is going to be your acceptable use policy. That's going to outline the roles and responsibilities and consequences of using the business technology for all of your employees. That's hugely important so they understand how they're supposed to use the technology. Don't just leave it up to chance. Don't leave it up to like, well, my people are good people and they'll be okay and they won't misuse the technology. That has to be in a policy. They really need to completely and clearly understand that. Or, people will make up their own rules. And then, of course, your backup disaster and recovery plan that outlines exactly how you back up your information and data. It doesn't matter where it is. It still needs to be backed up. Even if it's in the cloud, you have to understand how it's backed up and make sure that makes sense. And then what you do, the actual plan to recover. Bare minimum procedures are going to be things like how you prep a computer, how you create a new user, how you separate a user. That's the really nice way of saying firing somebody,
Yeah.
and and a change management procedure. So when you hire someone and set them up on your system, and when you fire someone or when they leave your company, those are the two places where it's highly possible that they're going to gain access to information or to systems that they shouldn't have information access to. So to make sure that each time this is done properly, it has to be written. If your IT provider does not have that, then you need to demand that they create a written policy or a procedure for all of those things, everything that's listed here. If they don't have a change management process, then you need to seriously consider working with a different provider. So let me explain to you what change management is. You call up, so somebody in your company calls up your IT provider, and they said, hi, I just got a new printer. I need you to install it for me. And so they install it for them. So you don't know that there was a new printer that was brought into your company, and and then that it was installed, and there's a problem with it later, and now you're getting a bill about a device that you didn't know was installed, that you didn't want this guy to have installed, and you have to pay for all of this. Okay, now that's actually that's like the best case scenarios. You had to pay for some work that you didn't actually want to have happen. Let me tell you one of the worst case scenarios. So you're somebody from your company call your IT provider, and they say, hi, my boss said that I need access to the HR and accounting folders on the server. And they say, okay, that sounds good because you sound trustworthy. And so they log into your server, and they give this person access to the HR and accounting folders, and then they close the ticket. They didn't ask anybody for
verification or, yeah.
And it's not visible at your IT company about what happened, and nobody knows it happened except one IT guy in that company who didn't tell anybody else about it. And then later, or maybe never, you don't find out. Or maybe you find out when that person reads all your HR files and then comes to try to blackmail you to get a larger salary because now they have information. Okay, don't tell me this doesn't happen, because I've seen it happen. This is not like I'm making up a boogeyman story. This is real. That's why change management is important. Change management includes things like who is the decision maker at the company, making the change visible. If it's a security issue, maybe even having it reviewed by an engineer at that company and approved. So it's hugely important for your security.
Wow, that's you did say that this is a dry and boring topic, but I actually still got a lot out of it. I never thought that you would need to, I mean, the basic prep a new person and separating a user are probably going to be the greatest areas where people are curious or vengeant, like that's it, I've been fired, I want to get it back at them. But because I don't think like a criminal, I just don't consider that is possible, and it obviously is. And change management, I'd learn a lot in that. But when someone gets access, who's the one that verifies or signs off on that? You've got to have another backup person just sort of saying, yes, they're approved for that, which is why when you work for a large organization, it might take a day or two to get everything set up for you. Yeah. Okay. Now, this next one, I think we tried to do some business on with a friend of mine, Richard, who I'm actually seeing on Friday. So I'll bring this up again. But one of the products he sells a lot of is cyber insurance, especially with doctors and medical firms, medical centers, surgeons, that sort of thing. And a lot of people don't have cyber insurance.
Yeah, so obviously we're an IT firm, so we don't sell it. But I advise every single company that we work with to make sure that they have the proper coverage for cyber liability and cyber crime. Now, I can't even speak to, what they're selling in Australia and in the States. We have both cyber liability and also cyber crime, which are two different policies that you can carry. But you need to talk to whomever does your business insurance and have this conversation. Tell me about the cyber coverages that are available. Tell me what they cover. Explain to me what's going to happen if I have a ransomware attack, or if my servers fail and I can't restore from backup. Tell me what's going to happen if we find out that our data was stolen and there's some personally identifiable information in there, or there's personal health information or other kinds of covered information. What will happen to me? How will this protect me? And what do I have to make sure that I'm doing on my end so that when it happens, that you will actually cover me? You have to have that conversation. You have to be prepared, because like we already talked about above, it's not if, it's when.
It's when. Yeah, like who would you call? I mean, you could be out hundreds of thousands of dollars by the time someone holds your company's information to ransom. All right. And they just lock you out. Pay this much money. Otherwise, we're just going to delete all your files. What would you do? And think of how much is your IP worth, or how much is all that data worth to you?
So there's that, right? So sometimes people tell me, well, I don't have anything that's worth anything. Well, I'm telling you, your accounting company file, your QuickBooks company file, I bet you it's worth something to you, because when you have nothing to tell your accountant when you have to do your taxes, I'm pretty sure it's going to be worth something to you at that point.
Hell, my secrets are worth insuring.
Yeah. And we also found out that recently the hackers have realized that the value of the information to not just encrypt it and hold it for ransom for you to get it back, but they actually, before they encrypt it, they take a copy of it and they put it in a container somewhere else, unencrypted, and they sort through it. So they go ahead, while it's encrypting, they go ahead and sort through your data and see if they have anything that they can sell on the dark web. So even if they make you pay for it to get unencrypted, they'll still sell it on the dark web and make money that way too. Make money both ways. They're great entrepreneurs. Zero ethics, but very good entrepreneurs.
There's no rules when you're a crook. You can do anything you want. Right?
That's right.
All right. Properly configured systems.
Yes, I know. Another one that sounds like so dry and boring. So properly configured systems, what does that mean? Well, most things out of the box, if you take it out of the box and turn it on, it's not configured securely. So you have a computer and you press the button and you go through all the stuff, the windows to get into it. Or if you have like Microsoft 365 and you just spin up an account and get some email, it's really, really easy to do that. But neither one of those platforms, or nothing comes secure outside of the box. You have to configure it properly for it to be secure. A firewall, a switch, your wireless. Like, if you are not working with someone that knows how to properly lock down those things to secure you, then you're actually really wide open, even if you have all that layered security and you have people that are aware. So it's really important that if you have internal people that are configuring those things, that they're properly trained to know how to secure those the configurations. And if you are choosing an external IT provider, that they actually know how to properly configure those things for security. If they're not having that conversation with you about securely configuring something, then it's likely that they're not securely configuring it.
What I've got going through my head is, Leia, how did I not know all of these things? Like, I think I'm pretty IT savvy, or certainly online sort of savvy. But there are a lot of, I can see why this talk works for you, for your organization, because it brings the information in a very simple, easy to digest way and makes me think about all the areas of risk that I'm not managing correctly. And I think partly running a business is you do have to manage risk, all right?
Yeah.
Then there's good risk, and when you're going to sort of go for an account, and then there's bad risk. This is silly risk on my behalf that I've allowed my business, even though being just a small business, but I've allowed people, client records, accessible by not managing some of these basic steps. Right. For everybody who's been a particular past client, I will go in and start looking after all of these things that Leia's suggested. So I'm just going to scroll up to here. These are, as you said before, the types of businesses that you're looking for, but businesses are losing money and opportunities because their computers systems don't work right. Worry-free, it banishes computers. What is that? Sorry, worry-free. Yeah, banishes computers problems to free business to just run and grow. Wow, that's been so much information. Thank you so much. Is there anything else you just wanted to tap off on these last 7 points before I get rid of this slide?
So, no, I don't have anything else on this. But I mean, like, you know, we are, from the perspective of being business owners, managers of companies, like, we're all in the same boat. We're all together in this, right? So I see us as all on the same side of the table. So just like you, if somebody came to you and they said, Glenn, I have this problem, it doesn't matter what it is, I have this problem, I don't know who to turn to, I don't know who can fix it. Your drive is to link them to the person or the organization that's going to be able to solve that problem that you have a high level of confidence in. I'm there with you. You know, yeah. I know that, first of all, like, we don't do everything, obviously, but if somebody comes to me with any need, I'm going to try to link them to somebody that can help them. If they have a question, I want to answer it. If I don't have the answer, I'm not going to make it up. I'm going to give you my honest answer. And I'm really, I hope that this talk today has been able to have some people here to say either, you know, especially at the beginning, you know, oh, I get that. I'm with you. I've experienced that before, and I'm so happy that I'm not alone. And you know, yeah, we're going to get up and fight the good fight. We're going to build these awesome businesses. But to understand, it doesn't matter where we are in the world. It doesn't matter if we're like across the entire world. We are all in this together, and we will rise. If we continue to do better business, we're all going to rise up together.
So everybody watching the show, you can now see what attracts me to Leia. It's that positive sort of energy. She's never been a victim. I love the way that she overcomes anything that's placed in front of her. And thanks for being my friend. One of the things that I ask guests to come on to is prepare a little goodie for coming on as a way of just sort of sharing the information. So you've shared some great stuff with us today, but I've left your details and I'll put them in the chat afterwards for people to reach out and get in contact with you. Can you just share what is the goodie and where could they go and get a copy of that book?
Okay, so I've got two things that I can do for you. So the first is that you can find my book for $12.99 on Amazon. It's always on Amazon. If you need me to ship it to you across the globe, I have absolutely no idea how much that will cost. But if you email me, then I will send it to you, and I'll figure out how much it costs. And for like $5, if you could just give me that small amount to be able to ship it to Australia, it would be my pleasure to ship it over to you. You have my contact information if you want to make sure you get a copy. Worst comes to worst, and if you don't want to do that, I can send you an e-copy of it, so at least you have it immediately, and you don't have to wait for a physical copy.
Okay, well, two on there. If you watch this recording, what are we now, the 18th? Anybody who private messages the group on this particular chat and says, yeah, I'd like to get a copy, you pay for the book and I will totally cover all the shipping. All right, so I'll just get Leia to put a bundle together of books together and I'll pay for all the shipping, and then I'll just send them out from here.
Sweet.
I'll grab a couple. Yeah, I know. I definitely want to get a copy from my friend Richard and some of his clients as well. Okay, so what's the goodie then?
Isn't the book the goodie?
Yeah, that's what you said in the message before. Is it? Hey, one of the things you can do is well, maybe I got it wrong.
Oh,
yes, that's the goodie.
You mean like the dark book scam? That one?
Yes, correct.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Like, so, oh my gosh, I guess I'm like a cornucopia of goodies today for everybody.
Yeah, you are.
So, stop, Leia. Yeah. So, and I will also do that too. So we have access to a database that has, like a massive amount of credentials that were stolen on the dark web. So if you're interested in that too, I can do that for absolutely free and anywhere in the world at any time. If you give me your email address, whether it's your business email address or your personal email address, I can run it against that database and I can find out if your credentials are on the dark web, and actually can send you a report that tells you exactly which credentials were compromised, so that you, back to those passwords, you know which passwords are already stolen and for sale on the dark web by hackers.
Wow. And so there's going to be no genius coming onto this particular show will know GGK1303. You already know it because I've told you on the show. All right. So there's no point in getting on and trying to hack on that one. Thanks very much for being a part of it. So I want to wrap up the show. This is the longest show that I've had in a long time, but it's been great information. What is a good referral for you?
Okay, so mostly I'm doing business in the States mostly. So it's going to be somebody in the United States that is a manufacturer, engineering firm, CPA or law firm, who is security conscious, growing, looking for a partner that really wants to be able to make sure that they can just trust someone to make their IT worry free, so they can focus on their business so it can just grow. And we take care of the business processes and mapping those to technology.
Okay, great. Thank you. Is there anything you want to finally wrap up with?
Well, thank you so much for having me. Even if there was just one person on this call tonight that's, that we're able to, whether it's from the IT perspective or the business perspective, help to push them just a little bit further, the time is absolutely worth it. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, you've helped this little IT muppet. Thank you so much. Okay, everybody, it is Glenn Kirkwood, aka That Referral Guy, signing off with a reminder to make, build, and share connections. This is a connection that I met 14 years ago. I got reminded of. I'm happy to share, but I'm always wanting to build this relationship. Thanks very much, everybody, and I'll see you next time.